Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, a couple weeks ago, Donald Trump won the presidential election in a resounding manner. He won every single swing state, many by a lot. And on top of that, he won the popular vote as a Republican in 2024. But still, it's not enough for some people. He carried Republicans to a trifecta. And this would lead somebody to believe that if this happened and you went to any liberal before the election and you outlined every single thing that happened, from Donald Trump moving every single state to the right to Donald Trump moving the country right by 6 points, every single one of them would say, mainly because they wouldn't believe it would happen, that this would be a hypothetical mandate victory for Donald Trump. But because it actually happened, they are embarrassing themselves, trying to move the goalposts into saying this is not a mandate, this was a very, very narrow victory, and they're just trying to enact these mental gymnastics into their analysis as to why this was not some sort of mandate. So I thought that we would explain why this was a mandate by many standards, and I think that to kind of showcase what some of the left is saying, why not check CNN and see what Harry Enton had to say to kind of downplay Donald Trump's victory in terms of how much of a resounding victory it was. Take a listen to this clip.
If you look historically speaking, Donald Trump is now under 50% in the national popular vote, barely under 50%, but he is under 50%. And I want to take a look and compare his popular vote victory to those historically speaking over the last 200 years. His popular vote victory ranks 44th out of 51. That ain't exactly strong. Some might argue that is weak, in the words of Tony Blair.
Okay, well, here's the deal. It is true that Trump's margin in the popular vote is under 2%. It may rank 44 out of 51, but we don't live in 1824 anymore. We live in 2024. You know, for over half of those 51 elections you could point to, only white men could vote. Donald Trump won white men by like 22, 23 points, which was more than the margin of victory in all of those elections before, what was it, like 1920. So when you look at that, it's like you're comparing apples to oranges. You know, a lot of people will say, you know, in bad faith, like, why would you bring that up? That was, 100 years ago. Well, he's bringing it up, not me. I'm just saying the country's changed since then. You know, even in 1972, you had an electorate that was like 90% white. Donald Trump would have easily won in that environment. Probably not by Nixon margins, but still, you can't compare elections that are happening in the current day to elections with a vastly different electorate at hand. You just can't. And we're more polarized now as a nation than we even were 20 years ago. The last time a Republican won the popular vote, George Bush in 2004. But even then, the electorate was like 10% plus more white than our electorate was now. And when you look at the electoral map, you could tell that Donald Trump won 312 electoral votes. That is more electoral votes than any Republican going all the way back to George H.W. Bush in 1988 when he ran against Michael Dukakis. So already just looking at the basic facts and comparing the context between 2024 and those past elections, you can see that Donald Trump had a historically solid performance. And in terms of the popular vote, Enton in this clip will go on and compare the popular vote, and we don't have to play every single bit of it, but he basically said it was lower than Biden's, it was lower than Obama's, but still, as a Republican to win the popular vote, that is extraordinarily difficult. And we don't conduct our elections by the popular vote. We conduct them by the Electoral College. You know, these same people said, oh, Biden won by 7 million votes in 2020. Well, here's the deal. You know, if you want to take the Electoral College and look at it at face value, because that's what dictates the election, you're talking about 43,000 votes. being the closest election since 2000. Pennsylvania alone, Donald Trump won it by 122,000 votes. You add Michigan on top of that, that's over 200,000. Then you add Wisconsin, that would be, if you combine all three of those together, around 200 and I guess you would say 235,000 votes combined. And I'm not going to get into this whole argument about, oh, well, the census should have given electoral votes to different states, because if the census was done properly, Trump would have won the Electoral College by more. And that's true. He wouldn't have even needed a Rust Belt state, but I'm not going to get into that argument, but it's technically true. But in terms of the Electoral College win by the magnitude, this was not even some 70,000 vote win across three states like his 2016 victory. No, he won across those same states by 3 to 4 times that margin, which is absolutely huge. And, that's kind of not technically close to Obama's 2012 victory when you add all those states up, but still it rivals it. And that was something a lot of people would say is a mandate election. Nobody's really going to dispute that. But you look at Bush in 2004, you add up Ohio, that was the only state you needed. It was less votes than Pennsylvania was won by Donald Trump. That doesn't even take in the other 2 states into account. So when you talk about mandates, you would have to go all the way back to 1988 to find a decisive victory like this for a Republican. You would. I mean, face facts. They've been the ones saying, oh, Trump's first one was a fluke. Trump, or any Republican, but especially Trump, could never win the popular vote, and he's a hair below 50% technically. But here's another little statistical tidbit. RFK Jr. Ran as a Trump surrogate and was on the ballot in a lot of, deep red states like Montana, for example, where a lot of his votes would have gone directly to Donald Trump. Maybe they just like both of them, said, my state doesn't matter, but they are Trump supporters. You look at RFK Jr., RFK Jr. got 2% there. He got 0.5% nationwide. Yeah, that would be more than enough to put Trump over the top, even if you gave Kamala Harris all of Libertarian Chase Oliver's votes, or, Jill Stein's votes, even though they were kind of like the Palestine crowd, both sides are evil, whatever, in terms of their rationale. But you talk about this, and it's also, what about non-voters too? Because a lot of people didn't vote. You talk about mandate to govern over the people. A lot of people don't vote. And I've said, the one reason why I thought that, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I said the one fatal flaw that Republicans had going into this election was the fact that their coalition is lower propensity. And when you look at the electorate, you can go back to a lot of polls that we've seen, almost every poll, voters with no voting record that were in the polls were going for Trump by 20 points. I'm sure a lot of them did show up, and we saw a lot of them show up, and we pushed hard for it, and we got it done. And that's a big reason why Trump won, and by the margin he won by. But still, it is true that a lot of people who never voted before and probably still sat out this election, had they actually voted, if you had a full turnout election, Donald Trump would have actually done better. And that was not the case back in 2016. That was not the case back in 2020, but it is the case now. That's kind of what showcases the mandate. And you talk about popularity overall, let's look at his approval rating in some of the same polls that had him losing the popular vote. Oh, look at this. He's up by 14 points in his approval rating. People are giving him a chance now. They really weren't doing that in 2016. The entire landscape, the cultural zeitgeist, it's all changed, and it's all favoring Trump in real time, and they're still trying to delegitimize his victory. It's just absolutely astounding. And again, they said Bill Clinton had a mandate for change in 1992. How much of the vote did Bill Clinton win in 1992? I mean, he won big. Nobody's disputing that. But he only got 43% of the vote. Oh, yeah, it's true. Perot took a lot of votes, but that doesn't really matter. RFK Jr. took votes from Trump. I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, And without him on the ballot in any state, Donald Trump would have won enough of the popular vote to get to 50%. But even then they'd say, oh, it was still less than this person or less than that person. It's never going to be enough for these people. They just keep moving the goalposts. Even in 96, Bill Clinton did not get 50% of the vote. And the map looked like this. Nobody was disputing that this was a mandate victory. Nobody thought Bob Dole had a snowball's chance in hell at winning the 1996 presidential election. I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, but he still held Bill Clinton under 50%. That did not really mean that Bill Clinton did not have a mandate to govern. Of course he did. Now, he had a divided Congress, but that's beside the point. What we do know is that Donald Trump doesn't, and Donald Trump carried the Republican Party to a trifecta. Usually when that happens, you get something that is called a mandate. Republicans in the Senate. In the clip, Harry Enton later on was talking about how, Democrats won 4 Senate races in states Trump won, even though, you look at the margins in some of these states, they're really razor thin. The third-party candidates screwing over the Republicans in, 3 of these 4 states, McConnell's stupid spending, whatever. But Trump in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Montana, West Virginia, flipping those 4 Senate seats Republican for the first time in nearly, 20 years, even longer than that in some of these cases. It's like, this was a mandate that did trickle down ballot. Even in the House, Republicans, you could argue, gained. It is true Democrats did flip seats, and that's true in places like Alabama, places like Louisiana, where they've been gifted these DEI districts by the Supreme Court, which folded and caved. But still, Republicans, when you take that part of redistricting into account, even combining North Carolina with what the Democrats did in the Deep South and New York and some of these other districts, even post-2022, they still gained on net, which is very important. And a lot of that was due to Donald Trump and the coattails that he had and the people he brought out to vote, flipping seats up in northeastern Pennsylvania. A lot of people didn't see flipping Michigan's 7th district Republican. A lot of people didn't think that district would flip, but it did. So all around, you look at this and it's a narrow majority, you could say, but it's still a trifecta that if you told anybody what would have happened a few weeks ago, and they would just laugh at you and they'd be like, that is a mandate, but that's not going to happen. It's fan fiction. It's a fantasy. And, it exactly happened. And let's also talk about obstacles, because Donald Trump overcame things nobody thought he could. He overcame, 4 criminal felony indictments, a felony conviction, and he still won the popular vote. He overcame 2 assassination attempts, 2 impeachments. He overcame 9 years of desperate lies, deceit, and slander, and came out more popular than ever. That should show you that he does have a mandate. He is unstoppable. The more they've hit him with crazy things, the stronger he gets. I think the Butler thing is kind of symbolic of his entire political career. And that's what we see. He became the first president to win 2 non-contiguous terms since Grover Cleveland. Anybody who doesn't think this is a mandate is out of their mind. Also, keep this in mind. Kamala Harris did not flip a single county. This was the county shift map, and this is the county flip map. Kamala Harris did not flip a single county. It's possible, given what's left in some of the counties in California, that they're still counting, that Donald Trump might flip a county or 2, or at least make them closer, given some provisional ballots that are still outstanding. But this is the first election since the 1930s where this sort of thing happened, and people want to say it's not a mandate. People wanted change. In fact, look at the shift map. They shifted to the right everywhere. The places that didn't have seen a lot of transplants move in, etc., even since 2020. And that's true. But besides the point, guys, look at this shift map. It's been just red everywhere, including in the populated areas. They're like, land doesn't vote. It doesn't matter how much red's on the map. Well, look at Chicago, look at LA, Orange County, look at, the New York City area. It doesn't matter. A lot of the blue shifts are in sparsely populated areas, to be completely honest, ironically enough. So whichever way you want to look at it, it's a mandate. Everybody can agree. He shifted the entire country to the right by like 6 points from the past election, despite them trying to claim he like overthrew the government or whatever. If that's not a mandate to govern, lead, select whoever you want for your cabinet, I don't really know what is in this day and age, because you're not going to have 400 electoral vote landslides. Like, you're not. The fact Trump put New Jersey, Minnesota, and New Mexico like within striking distance, and technically you could add Virginia in the mix and Nebraska second, was honestly impressive. And it's like, if Joe Biden was the nominee, maybe he could have won those states. But still, like, for the modern era, yes, this is indeed a landslide, as close to a landslide as you can really get, just because of the polarization. And yes, it's a mandate. If Biden could have a mandate to unravel Trump's border policies and try to get through whatever he needed to get through during his term, it is true he had a couple people in his own party that tried to, I guess you would say, act as a stopgap on certain things, which probably saved the party in popularity, to be honest. It doesn't matter. He claimed that mandate. Nobody really pushed back on it in the media. And now Donald Trump wins in a more impressive victory in terms of how you play the game and takes the popular vote by millions of votes. No, that's a problem. Whatever. It's a joke. They're coping, but we understand that he's got the mandate, guys. So anyways, make sure you guys like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.